How's it going, everyone? And this is going to be a bit of a different video, and it's actually on the request of a subscriber. What he basically asked me was, basically it's pretty easy to get good teams. Like you can get them from like Smogon or other websites, pretty much. But even if you have a good team, right? If you don't know how to use it, you are not gonna win many games. So that's what he asked basically, as to even if you have a good team, how do you basically use it, right? So this video is going to be on this topic. And before I tell you anything, standard disclaimer: uh, the sole one thing that's going to help you the most, right, in competitive Pokemon is just experience. Right, it's just experience. You keep playing and playing, and you will get good, right? Nothing can substitute for experience. No amount of knowledge or anything someone tells you, it won't amount for the experience that you gain by just simply playing the game. So yeah, that's one thing that you have to do. But still, there are some basics to a team and how you basically play your mons, like what roles each Pokemon fills and stuff like that, which is important to know, and you should know that. So I'm going to basically give you some info on that today. And I have some sample teams here. Yeah, all of them are made by me. These are not teams you can basically find on any websites. I have dropped some of these teams in my videos in the comment section, so you can pick them up from there. But let's look at this team first of all, right? So in any team, right, there are basically 5 basic roles that your mons fill. Let's say 6 basic roles that your mons fill, right? The first role is, which is really important, is a hazard setter, right? Like Stealth Rock or Spikes. Like for example, on this team it is Great Tusk, which is the hazard setter, right? So that's important to break any potential sashes or just chip down your opponent's team over time. Obviously that can be countered by heavy duty boots, but you can always knock them off if you have it. And the second important thing is hazard removal. Your team should have a hazard control ideally. Teams can function without them if you just plan to have heavy duty boots on majority of your mons. You potentially don't have to worry about that, but it's nice to have a hazard removal. And if your hazard setter is also your removal, then that's the best case scenario, because you are basically filling 2 roles with 1 Pokemon. That's why Great Tusk is actually the best hazard setter in the game, especially the OU tier right now, because it can set up hazards and it can also remove them pretty easily, right? And with boost energy, you're basically faster than everything when you once come in. And otherwise, it is a pretty good speed tier in the OU tier right now. So yeah, this is one of the best mons you can pretty much put on any team, and it works. So yeah, those are the first 2 niches. Then the next role is actually your speed control, or which is the choice scarfer on majority of the teams. Now in this team you can't see a choice scarf on because this team is running sticky webs, but this is obviously a gimmick team, but I will get into it later because this is not part of the basics. But basically what speed control does is always allows you to basically have a really fast mon on the field, so that you can potentially revenge. The main function of a speed control mon is to revenge kill. That is his main function, or late game sweeping, which you can achieve by basically putting choice scarf on your mons, right? So one of the best choice scarfers in the tier is Goldingo. It's a really good scarfer. There's also Meowscarada. It's already really fast, and with Protean, yeah, it hits pretty hard even with its U-turns. So these are some of the common scarfers that you can see currently in the tier. There's also Scarf Excadrill, which is pretty good, which is with Mold Breaker, and Scarf Ladi. And yeah, so that's how you basically gain speed control. Then you have your breakers and your sweepers. So the function of breakers is basically to punch big holes in your opponent's team early on through the mid game, right? So that your sweepers have an easy task late game. Let's see, the main breaker here on this team is actually Ogerpon. right? The main function of a breaker is to be a hard hitting mon. So typically you can have it either with two of the physical or special choice items, that is if you're running a physical mon, choice bang, or if you're running a special mon, choice specs. Or you can alternatively run a swords dance mon, which is ogre pawn right here, which is one of the best, if not the best breaker in the tier right now. With swords and an encore is also a pretty good tech on this mon. You can basically shut out opposing mons, opposing stall mons especially. So yeah, you should have your breaker on your team to basically punch big holes through specifically the bulky mons on your team, right? And after the breakers you have your sweepers, right? But the main function of a sweeper is to basically clean up late game. Now on many teams the scarfer is the sweeper, but that doesn't have to be the case always, because one of the no, not one of the best, the best sweeper in the game is actually King Gambit, right? It is the best late game sweeper in the game. You don't even have to use your brain majority of the time versus King Gambit when you're running King Gambit. The other examples of really good sweepers are obviously any scarf pawns, and another category which is specific to Gen 9 OU is the booster energy mons, because booster energy basically can give you the speed boost as well. So you basically act as a one-time scarfer and you can use that late game. One of the best examples is actually Iron Valiant. You can easily run that, or Gold Eagle is a scarfer. Or another good example of a sweeper which can also be a breaker, yeah, someone can fill both roles, and that's actually Guard Shot, Scale Shot, the Scale Shot SD variant that can act as both a sweeper and a breaker, right? And I haven't talked about any defensive options yet, but typically on balanced teams, right, you will see a physically defensive mon and a specially defensive mon as well. Now the most common walls that you see on teams are either Corviknight, which is the best physical wall in the game, or Skarmory as well, right? So you can see those. And regarding special walls, there are actually the best special wall in the game right now is definitely Heatran. Yeah, it's extremely specially bulky if you invest in it. I mean, it already has over 100 special defense, and yeah, it can basically eat a lot of special hits. So that's Heatran's main function on this team, and it also acts as a stall breaker. Now stall is one of the most annoying teams to go up against, and if you have a stall breaker, that is really nice. This team actually has 2 stall breakers. Even Golden Ghost is a really good stall breaker, especially if you give it Covert Cloak, right? It can easily break the most annoying one here, in my opinion, Terra Water Garganical. Yeah, but otherwise Ogre Pawn is also a really good stall breaker because it has Encore, and Heatran with the Magma Storm Taunt trapping, it basically gets rid of a lot of annoying mons. So yeah, and another, basically these are basically the sub roles that you should have on the team, apart from the main roles, which is 2 of the most important immunities you want on your team is an electric immunity and a ground immunity. Those are really important so that you don't get swept by either a electric type Scarfer or a ground type Scarfer, right? So in this team, Dragonite is the ground immunity. We also have Goldingo, who is on a balloon, also acts as a ground immunity, and then in the electric immunity we have Kratos. So yeah, these are the basic roles that you should have on your team, right? And now basically how to use a good team, right? Let's say if you have this team, right? I have got into a top 500 with this team. So this is like, let's say you use this team and you don't get the same results, but both are using the same team, right? Where's the difference? Obviously the difference is experience. First of all, that will always be the topmost priority that you need to attain. There is no substitute for that, as I told you guys earlier. But still, if you, let's say you are using this team, right, your first thing that you have to do is set up webs, because this team is circled around sticky webs. It doesn't have very fast mons. As you can see, there is no Scarfer here. So yeah, then what you basically need to do in any team that you are running, the mon that acts as your sweeper, right? In this team there are basically 2, Dragonite and Ogre Pawn. Your main job is to get rid of their counters or weaken them basically. Let's say Terra Fire Dragonite, right? One of the biggest counter to this thing is Alamamola. because it has regenerated and it always regenerates health pretty easily without even using wish or something like that, right? So your main job is to weaken that thing down so that even if it comes out with regenerator, it is still relatively weak and not near full HP, so that you can clean up with Dragonite later. So, and let's say Ogre Pawn, right? Ogre Pawn, it has really good coverage in general, but one of the biggest counters to this is Raging Bolt, because it resists both of these things stabs. So you need to weaken that thing as well. And another thing you have to keep in mind is the mon that is your win con, that you know that you need this mon to win. You basically don't want that mon to take much damage because of priority that exists in this game, right? Priority is very common. King Gambit's Sucker Punch, Sidor's Bullet Punch, Dragonite's E-Speed, right? Shadow Sneak from Cerulege. Both are all of them are really strong priority mons, which can easily pick off mons even from half HP if they don't resist the move, right? So you have to keep that in mind if you want to win any game. And one of the most important things, right, that separates great players from average players is the ability to predict. Prediction is basically the game changer in any Pokemon battle you are doing, because that allows you to always be one step ahead of your opponent in anything, right? Let's say let me give an example. Let's say I have a Terra Fire with my Dragonite. I have Terra Fire with my Dragonite, right? So let's say I get this mon in, right? Dragon Dance once in front of any mon that is not a counter to this. Now the first instinct that anyone would have, who obviously doesn't know that this Dragonite is Terra Fire, would go into a Corviknight because it completely walls this thing, right? And obviously you can always surprise them with the Terra even in their face. You don't have to predict 100% in this scenario, but a really good obviously prediction would be there that you immediately Terra Fire and you Terra Blast right the Corviknight in its face. You predicted that thing coming in, right? And let's say we talk about immunities, right? If you're facing another Ogre Pawn, obviously has Water Absorb, right? So your water moves don't work on it. Let's say you have a Heatran in front of you and you are using Ogre Pawn, so you will obviously go for the IV Cudgel because it will OHKO the Heatran, but the opponent has a water immunity, or let's just say any other water absorb mon, right? Let's say Clodsire or Vaporeon, so they can go into that thing as a mid ground. That way they can recover HP as well. So ideally you can predict them doing that and go for your other stab, which is Power Whip. So that's where prediction plays a good role. Let me give you a good example here from the from this Rain team that I have, right? Now obviously one of the biggest nuisance for this Rain team is Ogre Pawn Wellspring, because it has Water Absorb. So especially if you're Kingdra, right? Kingdra basically sweeps majority of the tier easily, barring Blissey and obviously Ogre Pawn Wellspring. But if you correctly predict it coming in and you drop a Draco on his face or Hurricane, that thing is dead. So that's your counter out of the way. Then with just one prediction, the game is basically in your favor. And the ability to predict correctly basically comes with experience, and you can never predict correctly 100% of the time. No one can do that at all. Even like Pokemon or Blunder can't do that, right? But you have to be at least right majority of the time if you want to make it to the top of the ladder or even win tournaments, stuff like that, right? That's where prediction comes in, apart from obviously knowing your team's roles. So that's basically the TLDR of how to use a good team and get good results with it. So in order to just summarizing things, what I told you guys, basically there are 6 roles in a team, right? Let's pick up this team, right? There is your hazard setter, which in this team is actually the Scarfer as well, Landorus. You also need a hazard remover, which here is Cinderace with Code Change, right? That's your hazards done. Then you need some speed control, which is actually just Choice Scarf Landorus on this team. Even Cinderace is a pretty fast one on the tier. and so is ogre pawn. So you need good speed on your team unless you're running trick room, but those are gimmick teams, and that is a video for another day. And yeah, that's your speed control done. Then you need your breakers, which typically features two of the other choice items, choice band and choice specs. And that isn't necessarily all the time they need that. Sometimes you can run a swords giant spawn as well as your breaker. Or yeah, you can see on this team there are two swords giant spawns, Garchomp and ogre pawn, and sometimes your breaker can act as a sweeper as well, which is the other role you must have on your team. And the examples on this team are Garchomp and Gambit, which are the main sweepers on their team. So what you want to do is you need to get rid of their counters, or you need to weaken their counters so that you can muscle past them or easily OHKO them later down the game. That's what your main goal is. Then you must have immunities on your team. Every team it is basically necessary to have. Actually, water resist is also one thing I forgot to mention. Water resist or water immunity is also really important to have, especially if you run against rain, then you're basically done for. So if you look at this team, it has a electric immunity in Garchomp, it has a ground immunity in Landorus and Balloon Golzingo, and it also has water immunity in Ogre Wellspring. But otherwise all the other 5 mons get OHKO'd under rain from any other rain abuser, right? And if you're running typical balanced teams, then you also have your both walls, which are the physical wall and the special wall. The most common physical wall is Corviknight, which can easily sponge physical hits and recover as well. And then you have the most common special wall, which is Heatran. And another good special or physical wall I forgot to mention is actually Max Defense Rocky Hammer Garchomp. That is a really good one to run on your team. It basically allows you to deal massive chip damage to your opponents over time, especially if they make contact, right? Specifically if they make contact. So those are main niches that you need to cover on your team, and that is basically, we are talking about balance here, right? There are other gimmick teams as well, like Sticky Webs, obviously, Trick Room, Rain, Sun, and the rare Sand teams, or the rare Snow/Hail teams. So those are other things that you have to take into account, but that is a video for another day. But yeah, that's basically how you use a team and what you need to know about your team. But as I said earlier, what you need most is experience. If you keep playing any tier, you will get good at it. There is no doubt in my mind. Anyone can be good at things if you invest time in it. So yeah, that is the basic TLDR of how to use a team. And if you guys want, I will make a video next on gimmick teams that I've seen specifically in the OU tier or even other tiers. In the lower tiers, some weathers are banned, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe as well, because majority of my viewers are not subscribed. Like over 90% of you are not subscribed, so it will be really beneficial to me if you guys actually subscribe, right? So yeah, until next time.